Hello, I'm Ana Garcia. I work for South Carolina Appleseed Legal Justice Center as their community organizer in immigration policy. And today we have with us Eileen Gomez, a fellow member of DACA United SC. Eileen, can you introduce yourself for us?
Hey everybody, my name is Eileen Gomez. I am a member of DACA United SC, and I am also a senior in my last semester at Columbia College, and I am also a DACA recipient.
So before we go into like what is DACA and all of that, and what's going on and how you can get involved and support, I will talk a little bit about what DACA United SC is. It's a local advocacy group here in South Carolina, an advocacy and support group, let me clarify, that works on immigration issues as well as supporting and providing, I want to say mental health, but mental health maybe is a bit of a stretch since none of us are, licensed therapists, but just like some support for the mental health side of what it means to be, an immigrant, especially here in South Carolina, where we'll talk about some of the limitations that immigrants face, but we're going to focus predominantly, obviously, on DACA. So just to start us off, Eileen, why don't you go ahead and tell us what DACA is?
So DACA stands for Deferred Action of Childhood Arrivals. It came into existence during the Obama administration in 2012, and basically what DACA did is it gave work authorization, protection from deportation, advanced parole, driver's licenses, and the opportunity for DACA recipients to attend college. And basically DACA beneficiaries are people who came to the United States as children. And the DACA program, or the idea, the concept of DACA is nothing new. It didn't just come out of thin air by the Obama administration. It is a product of years and years of hard work and advocacy for immigrants. I'm pretty sure it goes back before the early 2000s, even way back before then, probably all the way back to the civil rights movement. So like I said, it's nothing new. And obviously the program isn't perfect. There's still a lot going on. There's a lot of changes to the program, which we'll go more into. But Anna, I know you're a little bit more familiar with kind of not so much like a little bit of like the history of how DACA kind of came to be.
Yeah, so I think it's important to mention, like Eileen said, like the civil rights movement in this work, because if it wasn't for the civil rights movement, a lot of the rights that we have today as immigrants or children of immigrants, in my case, we wouldn't have today. So I do want to mention that that's a big movement, and that this movement for the rights of undocumented people, for the young people who came to this country undocumented as children, all of these people are not a new, it's not a new issue in the United States. It's something that's been happening for a while. And a lot of people have been working to get rights, pathways to citizenship since, I think the last real amnesty was in the 80s. There are a lot of people who don't have a pathway to citizenship. And that's just, it's not right. Our immigration system is always whacked up. And so, and that's not the legal term, obviously, for it. But just to say that that DACA was a result of many thousands of people from all across the country coming to DC and advocating. President Obama did not do this just out of nowhere. It was the result of people marching and calling and talking. So that's how it happened, right? And we can see that reflected in marches even today. of, it may feel like nothing's happening, but change takes a lot of time. And that's still the case even for immigrants today. Like this isn't the end all, of everything, because we're going to talk about like the limitations and what's happening today. And you'll see like DACA is not perfect and it's not the solution that we need. We need more. And I guess that's a great way to talk about what are the limitations, and I'll just mention, for example, that DACA is a 2-year program that you have to pay $495 for. And it's just a protection from deportation. And it's not a pathway to citizenship. So that's that fact that it's not a pathway to citizenship, and then that means people have to be paying this every 2 years is an issue. So Eileen, you have anything to add? I know you do.
Oh yeah, a bunch of barriers. I mean, the program directly affects me. Definitely the renewal fee every 2 years is definitely a barrier. And now, due to one of the recent changes, you have to renew every year, and the fee stays the same. Which, I mean, for a lot of people, it becomes an issue because that's quite a bit of money. And as you mentioned, with no pathway to citizenship, it's just very outrageous to me. Also, in South Carolina, if you're a DACA recipient, you don't, and you want to go to college, you don't have access to in-state tuition, professional licensing, or state-funded scholarships. This affected me directly after I graduated high school, and I was in the orientation process with the school I had chosen. They basically sent me an email explaining basically that because of my immigration status, I could not apply to the nursing program, which is what I originally wanted to do. And I had to pay a crazy amount of money for out of state tuition, which forced me to change my major and attend a local community college because it was a lot cheaper to pay that community college tuition than thousands and thousands of dollars for the college that I had chosen. And I think especially the professional license barrier is crazy to me because it's nursing is one of them. Another one is teaching licenses. The state is going through a nursing and a teacher shortage. And the fact that you're barring people from being able to pursue those careers is crazy because you're helping the state. You're helping out people from the state, as with the pandemic that's been going on and with the state having a shortage. You think that the state would want more nurses, more people to go into the healthcare field, but we're still here with all these barriers.
And I think to add on to that, just like the fact that people have been here, like some people as young as like 1, they've lived in South Carolina, and that South Carolina is their home. Like, not even to say like, oh, this is the only, it is their home. And you can't even become a teacher in your own state or like be a nurse in your own state. Like, and, not to gossip too much, but like USC, pays people from out of state to come, some decent money, give some decent money to come to our state. And we can't even do that for our own students. I mean, I think that's a little bit.
Yeah, it's a little outrageous. I don't know, it's just like you pour all this effort into, I guess you could say, like the state. Like if you go to a public school growing up, it's like you're pouring all this education and effort into a child who, once they grow up, they want to, be a teacher, be a nurse. And then you're like, oh, actually, no, because of your immigration status, you can't do that. And if you're undocumented, you can't even go to a public school. You have to go to a private school, and that also just depends on the private school and their policies with undocumented students. Another barrier.
It's all a state issue. Every state is different. And I know nursing students who studied here and then went to school and are actually practicing as a nurse in North Carolina. This is not something that is nationwide. This is up to each state. So I just wanted to clarify and add that. Go ahead.
Yeah. Another barrier is the driver's license. I remember the first time I got my driver's license, it was for 2 years, and I was 17, and whenever I renewed, it's only for a year. So now, I think that kinda correlated with when Trump rescinded the program, which we'll go a little bit kind of into, but I think, yeah, it was after he rescinded the program, I had to renew my license, if I remember correctly, or a little bit after that, and I got my license for a year. So now, even then, it's like every year DACA recipients have to renew their license for every year pretty much in South Carolina.
And something else that I think is really important to talk about, just since we both have worked on this issue, is that there is a bill that is called the College Access and Workforce Development Act. That is a state bill that kind of would resolve some of the issues that we're talking about, as far as in-state tuition, professional licensing. But I will say that in the two legislative sessions that it has been in, it hasn't passed. It's gotten a really good movement. There was a lobby day that was like the first, as far as I know, like lobby day that was predominantly immigrant focused, just immigrants talking to their legislator. Well, I wouldn't even say immigrants, like South Carolinians. These are literally people who consider this state home, right? That want to talk about how they can um, help their state improve and as well as improve their own lives. Um, so I just want to also include that that is something else that, aside from the federal things that we're definitely going to talk about in a second, that statewide DACA recipients are also affected by that. So
Yeah, no, and the movement has definitely, with the College Access and Workforce Development Act, the movement has definitely grown. I feel that a lot of people are starting to get like wanting to know more and more about it and get more and more involved. But it's a process, like you said, two legislative sessions, and it still hasn't passed. But I mean, it takes time, and we just can't give up. You have to like keep pushing and pushing and pushing because even though federal law places barriers on DACA recipients, it's state laws that are, in my opinion, it is the state laws that have placed more barriers in my life personally, more than the federal laws.
yeah. Um, so let's talk about some of the federal issues that are also affecting DECA today. So a lot of has happened this year. Um, it's been the result, obviously, since 2017 when Trump tried to end the program till now. So I guess I can just start with some of the history about 2017, and I'll let Eileen jump into some of the more recent Supreme Court decision and whatnot. So back in 2017, the Trump administration decided to end the program, which was something that um, wasn't necessarily a surprise, but was really sad. Um, it meant that people, had a last chance to renew. People who would have been able to get the program, get the protection from deportation, were not able to. People who had been using advanced parole, which is a specific program to allow people, people ask for permission to either leave the country for a family emergency or to study abroad or for work purposes. And so that perk, I guess you could say, was ended. And so as a result, many lawsuits ensued, and luckily, people who had DACA were able to continue renewing. But unfortunately, people who would have been eligible were not able to. So I'll let Eileen kind of continue from there.
Yeah, so as a result of like the lawsuits and constant battle to pretty much go against the program being rescinded, the case ended up at the Supreme Court. During the summer of 2020, the Supreme Court ruled that the way the Trump administration ended the program wasn't right. It wasn't the correct way to end it, which some people could take it as, oh, the court sided on DACA recipients, which in a way it did, but it also left the door wide open for other ways for the program to be ended. To me, the way I interpreted the decision was, okay, they sided with us for right now. We have a little bit of time to kind of advocate and push for a fix, but it also led to more there's like other ways in which the administration could just come out and end the program, because it comes down to the Supreme Court just basically saying, you have to find another way if you want to end the program. And then shortly after this decision, the Department of Homeland Security updated USCIS saying that they weren't going to be accepting any new applications for people who would have qualified for the program back in 2012. But then, they weren't of age to apply when it was rescinded. No advanced parole, only renewals, but instead of it being valid for 2 years, it is now down to 1 year. So DACA recipients have to renew every year on top of paying the $495 fee. Before it was that fee for 2 years, or every 2 years, but now it's every year, which to me, it places even more barriers and discourages people from applying, because that's a lot of money. Like $500 every year, that's a good bit of money.
Which means people could be more likely to lapse. And by what I mean by lapse is that you let some time go after you're supposed to renew your DACA like a few months before it expires to allow for the time for USCIS to process your paperwork and do your background check and your biometrics and all of that kind of stuff, right? But if you don't have the money or you don't apply early enough or whatnot, then you might have a time where you don't have DACA, which means you don't have work authorization, you don't have whatnot. And that means you could either lose your job, you could lose you maybe have to leave school for a bit, depending on, the school. And so, I mean, that's, really unfortunate. And, there's no waiver for like financial hardship or anything like that. You have to pay your $495. And there are some programs, some organizations that are trying to help. But $495 every year means that they are going to have to collect a lot more money to be able to help people renew. This is for us, when we heard this news, like it was really terrible, especially since there was a little bit of time between the Supreme Court decision and this last decision by DHS, where and actually there were a lot federal decisions that also said like people should be able to renew right now. They should be able to do initial applications. They should be able to do like that thing. So we, as DACA United SC and many other organizations, were actually getting ready to help people apply for the first time. And we know people who, are high school seniors or have already graduated who should have had DACA and don't have it. And so it was just like we were getting ready to help all of these people, and then this decision came out, right? That no initial application. So that was just really heartbreaking to have to tell people like, sorry, even though it should have happened. People should have been able to do initial applications. It didn't happen. So that was just
very heartbreaking. But I guess this leads us into what you can do to help. A call to basically your vote. If you have the privilege to vote and you are registered to vote, please show up at the polls. Your vote is so important, and I unfortunately do not have the right to vote, and federal law directly impacts my life. Any change in immigration law directly affects me. It affects other immigrants. So whenever you go to the polls, just remember each candidate has a certain stance on immigration and take that into consideration. If you vote person A, what could be the consequences on immigration law if you vote them in? If you vote person B, what could be the consequences? You have to look at the or where they stand because many people's lives depend on that vote, on who is put into office. And your vote doesn't only count for the presidential election, it counts for local and state elections. Like there's a lot of people running for office, running to get reelected. So keep that in mind. It's not just, oh, well, this person, is from a certain party or the other. Keep in mind and look into each person and where they stand on immigration and also other issues too. But specifically for like this topic, it's immigration. Like to be a little bit dramatic, it's like our DACA recipients and the program are in the hands of the federal government, and the future of DACA depends on who's put into office.
Yeah, and I think along with that, once the elections are over, it's important to also continue communicating with these newly elected officials and letting them know, what you stand for, what you want them to support, because there are going to be a lot of laws that are going to be introduced, perhaps as a solution to DACA, perhaps as a solution for the many millions of undocumented people in this country that should have a pathway to citizenship. Um, I encourage people to follow the DACA United SC Facebook or Instagram to be kept up to date. We usually post about DACA, but obviously, if any really important immigration issues are coming along, we will also be sharing information about that, because many of our members have family members who are undocumented. Immigration is important to us beyond just DACA as well. And myself, as somebody who can vote as a US citizen, but having family members and friends, obviously, who are undocumented, this is an issue not only for people who are undocumented, but for us as US citizens. And making sure that we talk to our legislators beyond the election is just really important, to hold people accountable as they said that they were going to, and to also encourage people to change their minds if they weren't going to vote the way that we want to. So I encourage you to follow our Facebook, keep up to date with what's going on, especially in our state, and keep in touch. Thank you so much, Eileen, for sharing with us. I know that this is a really personal issue, so I appreciate you and all the work that you do. And thank you all for listening. And hopefully, we'll see each other again. Thank you. Bye.